How far is too far? Well, a couple things. I mean, this is a very common question we get, like, oh, can you do this? Can you do that? We got to look at it. First off, the mentality behind this is almost like, well, if it's a mortal sin, I don't want to do it. But if it's a venial sin, I don't want to miss it. Okay, this is really the wrong attitude that we should have towards sin. If we truly love somebody, we wouldn't even ask the question, well, how far can I go before doing something really bad? Because how far too far is an incomplete sentence, isn't it? How far is too far? Too far before what? Well, too far before, too far. No. Really, finish the sentence. How far is too far before I commit a mortal sin? Like, why am I even asking this question? Like, what attitude do I have? It's almost like, well, how close can I come to driving our family van to the side of that cliff without actually falling off? I mean, took the kids off-roading in my truck last weekend, and we went up into the forest and the mountains, and it was just breathtaking. I mean, the trees were blooming, the aspens were popping. I mean, it was amazing. And we're driving alongside this, dirt road up in the mountains, and, there's no guardrails up there. And, we're looking down. It's a sheer cliff down to the river down there. And, obviously as a father, I'm hugging, the far side of that, mountain trail the whole way. Why? Because of the value of who's driving with me, not the vehicle, the passenger's sitting in the back. And so if you have that love, the question is not, well, how close can I get to that edge? The question is, how far can I go to keep this thing safe? And so we need to check our hearts. Is my heart in the right place by even asking this question? That's consideration number one. Consideration number two is like, well, okay, that's helpful, but I still want to know. Like, I want to know not so how, in terms of how sinful I can get, but I want to know how to express affection in a way that's pleasing to God. Like, my relationship with God is important. I want to love this person rightly. I'm not concerned about like how close can I get to mortal sin, but I really have just never gotten the answer. Like, how far can we go? A couple of principles to lay down. First, I often say to the guys, like, you want to get married one day, and the guy like, yeah, I want to get married. I said, okay, let's say you married girl of your dreams. What's your name? He's like, oh, I'm Derek. I'm like, okay, Derek, let's say you meet the woman of your dreams. And you guys get married, you go off your honeymoon, you find out you're expecting little baby girl, and you get back and you have this little baby girl, and you name her like Derekita or whatever, and you're in love with her. I mean, this girl is like your heart outside of your body. And you've never loved anything like this before. And you teach her how to ride a bike, you raise her up with princess bows and everything. She turns 16 years old, you get a knock at the door. And it's her date for the prom of high school. And so calmly, you cock the gun, go to the door, and there's this guy standing there, and you look over his shoulder, and he's not driving a car. This guy's got one of these like microbus Volkswagen minivan things with like a mattress in the back instead of seats. Like, okay, now how far is that guy going with your daughter that day? Typically, the guy would be like, well, she ain't going out my door that day. He ain't going anywhere. Okay, well, why would we have such a protective attitude toward the innocence of our daughters, but fail to have the same attitude towards the girls that we're dating? And so how far would I want someone to go with my daughter? Consideration number one, you shouldn't be expressing affection in such a way behind a dad's back that you wouldn't express in front of his face. And so have integrity there, because when you get married, you're going to become her man, so to speak, all right? But before she's married, her man, so to speak, I think is her father, right? And he'll walk her down the aisle to you, lift the veil, and give her to you. In that moment when she becomes your bride, you're the man or whatever. But until then, you want to honor her father, because you might not end up marrying this girl anyway. And so you may be dating someone else's future husband or future wife. And so you would want to treat them in such a way that you would want someone else to treat the person that you may be dating or that you may end up marrying as well. So that's one consideration. Another thing is like, do we have a double standard when it comes to the way we treat girls versus the way we treat like someone want to treat our sister? I remember in high school, my sister had a date, and she was the blonde-haired, blue-eyed captain of the cheerleading team, and the guys liked her. And so to try to, help her to stay away from the wrong kind of guys, one thing I would do is I would just try to compliment her. I'm like, hey, Kelly, you look really nice in that dress. Oh, your hair looks great. Your eyes are really pretty. She's actually told me she's been on dates with boys, and they've said to her, Kelly, your eyes are so beautiful. And she says, I know, my brother tells me that. And they're like, oh, got to think of something else here, And so I try to build her up in those ways. But I remember one day she had a date, and I was visiting back from college, and I played 3 years of college baseball. And so I remember doorbell rings, and I know it's this guy to pick her up. So nonchalantly, I just come downstairs, with my baseball bat, in my hands to meet the guy, essentially trying to set his measure. Like, you mess with her, I'm going to mess with you. You guard her innocence. But like, okay, But Jason, do you guard the innocence of the girls you're dating? Well, no, I'm a guy. It's different. Like, no, it's not. Double standard. Like, we can't have one standard for our future wife, for my daughter one day, for my little sister, but a completely different standard for the girls that we're happening to be dating that might be someone else's future wife, that are somebody's daughter, could be someone's sister. We've got to live with more authenticity, having that. And so people, okay, well, Jason, that's great and everything, but seriously, how far is too far? Well, to be clear, I think that passionate kissing should be reserved for marriage. Because passionate kissing, I've had girls tell me, but Jason, like, I can make out with a guy and I'm totally fine doing just that. Not going any further. But the thing is, for one, especially for a guy, passionate kissing is an arousing thing. And typically, if a guy's passionate kissing, he's not simply content, okay, we're just going to end it there. That was a nice day. His body's moving along, his passions, his desires, anticipating what is this going to lead to? And am I really going to maintain a pure relationship of hot, passionate makeout sessions for the next 10 years until we get married? The likelihood of that going the distance and maintaining purity is not likely. Gradually, over time, the thing's going to erode. So I would say try to really guard the innocence of that relationship. And instead of looking at the world and being like, well, wait a minute, my friend's doing this and that guy's going to bed with a different girl every weekend, I'm really not that bad. Hey, as Christians, we don't even look at them and judge our behavior based on theirs. What I want you to just step back and be like, okay, look at the saints in the church. Like Saint Therese of Lisieux, her parents are canonized saints. How would they have dated each other? The Blessed Virgin Mary with Joseph. They, were engaged, before the angel came and all this happened. Like they had a loving teenage relationship. With what trembling reverence would Joseph treated Our Lady? And a lot of people are like, well, don't think about that. Joseph and Mary, no. We need to go there in contemplation because his love for Mary was not a threat to her purity. His love for Mary was exactly what safeguarded her purity. The church honors him with the title Guardian of the Virgin because he loved her so much. He wanted nothing more than lead her to heaven. And so we need to spend some time looking at true examples of holiness instead of looking at people who don't care at all about what God thinks about them and think we're better because we're living a different lifestyle. And so I would say to reserve passionate kissing for marriage and express the kind of affection that you would express in public or in front of her parents. And that might seem like a high standard, but I think you'll find that living with purity not only heals the past, but the more pure you are, the easier it is to be pure. The more you kind of sit on the fence and be like, I won't do that, but we'll still do this, makes it so much harder. Because the way that God has crafted our sexual passions to be is for them to be all-consuming. That once those desires are aroused, they're not really satisfied until they're fulfilled. And so by keeping them in check, it's not just about white-knuckling it all the way through and just self-denial and repression. You'll find that with greater purity comes greater freedom. And these things, you'll be able to practice this with greater ease instead of constantly teasing yourself with desires that can only be satisfied morally within the sacrament of marriage. Hey there, I hope you enjoyed that little clip, but if you want to see the whole episode where this came from, just click the link here. And in the meantime, we want to invite you to help us share this message, and there's a couple things you can do real quick. Number one, if you like or comment or share this video, YouTube will actually show it to more people. Also, don't forget to subscribe, hit the notification bell. We release videos every single day, and you'll be notified as soon as those come out. If you want to help us also to spread this message, you can support us at patreon.com/Jason Evert. That helps us to create these videos and show them to the whole world. God bless.